Exodus 32 verses 7 to 8 says, "Then the Lord told Moses, 'Quick, go on down, for your people that you brought from Egypt have defiled themselves and have quickly abandoned all my laws. They have molded themselves a calf and worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of Egypt." What a sad, sad moment in the history of Israel. They had fallen right into idolatry and apostasy 40 days after promising not to do so. As we objectively look back at that scene, it may seem quite ridiculous that people worship a lifeless golden statue. Their excuse was that they wanted a tangible representation of God. Since Moses was no longer among them, they felt kind of lost spiritually. However, they could still see the cloud covering Mount Sinai. They could still see and hear the flashes of lightning of the divine presence in the thick cloud resting on the mountain peak. So they did have some physical indication of God's presence on which to grow their faith. But they had come to depend on Moses to help them grow their faith and relationship with God. And so when their leader was temporarily taken out of the equation, their faith had no root, and the stage was quickly set for apostasy. That is the problem when our spiritual experience is based on a particular leader, when we depend on a person to grow our faith. Keep your eyes on Jesus, on God, and your faith will grow. Okay, so why a golden calf of all things to worship? Well, remember that among the Israelites was the mixed multitude, primarily made up of Egyptians and other foreigners. They were used to worshiping deities such as the ox or calf, and thus introduced the idea of creating such an idol in order to go before them, whether to the promised land or back to Egypt. The logic was that if they walked back into Egypt with this image before them, acknowledging it as their God, then they would find favor with the Egyptians. Again, you might think, how ridiculous. A golden calf has no real power. I would never do that. I would be too smart to fall for that. Well, let me tell you about some modern superstitions in the world of sports, where very smart athletes give power to the most ridiculous things. Let's start with Serena Williams, who was by far the greatest female tennis player of all time. When she was on a winning roll, she would wear the same pair of socks every match. And no, she wouldn't wash them until she lost a match. Or we also have Tiger Woods, who wore a red shirt on Sundays and believed he would dominate the 18 holes that way. It's a tradition or a superstition he started as a junior golfer, and he would always wear his red shirt on the last day of his tournaments. Ridiculous, right? Well, the superstitions and idols of today may look different than ancient Israel, but at the end of the day, have a similar appeal. It's something or someone we give power to over our lives that takes the place of God. And whether we are aware of it or not, we end up worshiping. And with that, we come to the end of our nugget. I'll see you tomorrow.